Ladies, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to talk about how to stop panicking every time the kids are off, every time we feel as though routine is about to change. I know a lot of women struggle with this. If you're a mum and you're in the UK, it is now officially Easter holidays. And so for a lot of you, we feel as though all hell is going to break loose. We're going to be surrounded by chocolate. We're potentially going to be overstimulated by having to entertain the kids or be surrounded by kids 24/7. And we feel as though we don't have the opportunity to take care of ourselves. I think that's what most women struggle with, is that we work so hard to create a routine that allows us to have these little pockets in the day to take care of ourselves. And that's taken away from us when it's the school holidays. And so for a lot of us, that's what keeps us mentally sane and able. So then the thought of us not being able to do that, it can send us into a bit of panic. We feel as though we're going to go backwards and we don't want to do our hard work. And, how do we get out the other side of these holidays? I was actually chatting the other day with a woman that I work with. And she said to me, you know what, Nick, we're having these conversations, but you do it. She said, you had Isadora's birthday a couple of weeks ago and that didn't make a blind bit of difference to your scale weight or any of the other variables. You still went to the gym, you still ate the way that you normally do. And I was like, oh yeah. And I know that sounds so wild for me to say, but I sometimes don't acknowledge the things that I do. And I try to give, obviously I'm always trying to give the tips and the advice and anything that I can give that I do that I'm thinking, right, okay, I know this is going to be valuable for you. I can't bear it when we have these women who just gatekeep all of the information. I'm like, if something is working, I'm going to share it. But that was lost on me, I think. And she said to me, you've got to talk about this stuff because the holidays, the 6, the 8-week holidays, the 2-week, the Christmas period, it doesn't seem to impact you. So what are you doing differently? Why are you not panicking? And I was like, oh yeah, good question. And you know what? I'll tell you what it is. Me speaking from my own experience feels different than me speaking in coach mode, if that makes sense. So when I'm speaking as a coach often, especially if you're a one-to-one client, I'm trying to think specifically about your lifestyle. I've got your goals in the front of mind, and I'm always trying to negotiate with that kind of mindset where we know we want the flexibility, but then we also know that we want to progress and we want to hold ourselves to a higher standard. So I'm going to talk from a little bit of both in terms of perspective today. I'm going to keep it no nonsense. So if you're ready to hear and to be given some permission to just act with intention this week, ladies, then stay tuned. First of all, and I've said this on the Monday episodes, we're going to cut right through the unfiltered for now. That might make a return and just get straight into it. But first of all, ladies, we've got to be accepting that a routine is going to be different. And this is something that I do that works for me, is I will still stick to a routine when the kids are off or when we go on holiday or when it's a certain time of the year, but it'll just be a different routine to like a typical working week. So similar way to think about it is your non-negotiables. So your non-negotiables might change. When the kids are in school, your non-negotiable might be you go for a 5k walk after you've dropped the kids at school. Anyone who's got the luxury to do that. During the holidays, that might not be doable. So then we change that non-negotiable to I'm going to have a 20-minute stretch whilst the kids are eating breakfast. The point is, your non-negotiables are what create the routine. So all we need to be conscious of going into this next 2 weeks of holidays is what do we want our non-negotiables to be, and how is that now going to create a routine for the day? Simple ones that can help you, especially to stay regulated and remove overwhelm. First 30 to 60 minutes of the day, no social media. Big one. You're going to be seeing what everyone else is doing. Maybe you're going to be seeing the mum next door in the gym or whoever it is who you follow on Instagram, and you can't get to the gym and it's stressing you out. Stop looking at what everyone else is doing and give yourself permission to just have the first hour of the day headspace. Obviously drink your water, maybe get outside and get a bit of fresh air, and have your non-negotiables around nutrition, which brings me into the next point, which is that we don't have to eat. Well, yeah, can I tell you what I've written down on paper? I've written, we don't have to eat like idiots just because it's half term. And I'm saying that in like a whispered voice because I would never want anyone to think that I am calling you an idiot for eating a certain way. But listen, we don't have to be eating like we've completely lost the wheel just because our kids are off. No, that is, I'm sorry, but take a handle, get yourself prepared, know that the kids, our hubbies, those around us, they don't have the same genetics, the same goals, the same metabolism as us. If we're going to take accountability for our progress for our mood, for our energy, because all of this is impacted by the food that we put in, then we've got to take ownership of the day. Where am I going to be going today? Where am I going to get my food from? Do I need to prep anything in advance? Yeah, I'm going to take the time aside to make sure that that happens. And I'm not going to blame the fact that we ended up in a cafe that had no healthy options. Well, plan in advance. Have something with you at all times, ladies. If you're serious about, maybe in your mind you're thinking, I actually want to make progress over these next couple of weeks, and I don't really want the kids being off to impact how I feel in my body. I want to have a great time. I want to be able to relax. I want to make some good memories. I want the kids to have the best time ever. But I don't want my progress to hit the skids as a byproduct. Like, it shouldn't be one or the other. So if it's previously always been one or the other for you ladies, first of all, I would argue that a lot of that is just down to the mindset of what is changing. Because just because some things are now out of our control and we've got to do things a little bit differently, and maybe we can't just get out for our walk at lunch or whatever it might be. I mean, let's be honest, there are massive pros to our kiddos being off with us, and we all sit and cry when they're in bed at those bloody reels that remind us that these years are fleeting, and this time when I'm 80 I'll look back to these days. And so let's live these days with some intention. Like, let's make the most of these days. We don't have to eat in a way that makes us feel like shit just because the kids are off. So if the kids are having chocolate, the kids are having their goodies or whatever, get very comfortable knowing that we can't eat like that and still thrive. It just doesn't work. Genetically, the age that we're at, it's not going to bounce. We can have a little bit of flexibility, that's okay. But again, I would build that in and plan for it, because you're going to enjoy it so much more versus we have like the piece of cake or the ice cream or whatever ad hoc because we left ourselves starving. We don't enjoy it as much, ladies. We feel a little bit, I hate using the word guilty, but it is that sort of like feeling, isn't it, afterwards, where you feel as though, oh, I wish I'd have prepared something better there. I didn't even really want that cake. I would have rather had my healthy option, but there was nothing. We were in a coffee shop and there was nothing else for me to have. So number one rule, you've got to stay prepared. I was thinking of content ideas, honestly. My brain when I'm in the shower is always thinking about it. Well, I'm sure we can all relate to this, the to-do list. But I was thinking the other day about how to stop eating chocolate, because somebody had asked me the question, how do I stop eating chocolate? And depending on what day you catch me and depends on my response to this, but on this particular day, my initial response was literally, you put the chocolate back in the cupboard, you close the cupboard and you walk away. That's it. That is how you stop eating chocolate. We don't need to overcomplicate it. We can talk about the stress and maybe the sleepless night and the hormones and everything else that might be driving you to chocolate. But ultimately, how do I stop eating the kids' Easter eggs? Well, you've just got to create a boundary whereby you say to yourself, I don't eat like that. I know that the kids do, but I don't eat like that. As mum, I eat fruit. I prioritise plenty of protein, and I'm going to have my little bit of whatever I fancy, on this time, on this day, on this occasion. And I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm not going to let it snowball into a week, because I know how that makes me feel. Like, we've all been there, haven't we? We know how it makes us feel. If you want to get past that, got to be willing to draw a line in the sand, ladies, and step forward across that line. So we can talk on this in a little bit more detail, but bottom line, you have to be prepared for yourself. Your scale weight does not need to go wild just because the kids are off. So if that's always been the case, then something that you've been doing is not lined up with where you want to get to. And you know what? Again, happy days. We're in a position of control here, ladies. We can change that for ourselves. One thing that you might find is, and I don't want to take away from the fact that it can be a challenge depending on how many kids you've got, how old they are, what the weather's like. Even, if we can get outdoors, it really does make a difference to if we're stuck in all day in the rain. But one of the things that I think will change is appetite earlier in the day. So when you are more switched on, which we are when we've got our kids with us, like mentally and physically, we're more switched on, you might find that you just feel naturally hungrier. And I've spoken about this on previous episodes, the benefit of front loading your calories. So having a decent breakfast, having a decent lunch, and then having a lighter evening meal rather than doing it the other way around. Now, I would just bear it in mind whilst the kiddos are off for the next 2 weeks. Because what can really backfire and kick us in the butt is if we start our day trying to be good, then we go into lunchtime, or we might go out for a couple of hours or whatever, and we're still trying to be good. But then we get to like early afternoon and we are ravenous, and we don't realise that it's because we've been so much more stimulated and maybe even active, whether that's mental or physical, than we would normally. Like our central nervous system has been on, like switched on. And we know that, triggers cortisol. And then one of the best ways to bring this stress hormone down and keep it under control is to eat well, not giving into chocolate, not giving into all of that, not junk calories, but just to eat well. And again, when I'm saying front load your calories, I'm not saying you've got to have an 800 calorie breakfast, but make sure you're getting an adequate amount of protein. Make sure there's some fat in there. Have a piece of fruit on the side. Have another piece of fruit as a morning snack. Have some more fruit with your lunch. Like, I know that there's calories in fruit, ladies. I'm not going to take away from that. But you will find it very hard to overeat if you give yourself the condition that whenever I want to have a snack or something outside of my planned meals, it's going to be a piece of fruit. That's it. Bottom line, no two ways about it. And you know what? If you've ate an apple, a tangerine and a banana by 10 a.m, like what's the worst that's going to happen? Because from a nutrient perspective, well, you're taking a whole lot of goodness from those 3 pieces of fruit. But what we will convince ourselves is, we'll convince ourselves that's too many calories wasted on fruit. So we'll let ourselves go hungry. And then we end up eating rubbish at like 7 p.m. anyway. So we need to be practical and stop this rebound in its tracks. So maybe if you do notice an increase in appetite, give yourself that sort of like non-negotiable. If I feel like I need an additional snack or something outside of what I've planned, it's going to be fruit. That's it. Have something with you at all times. I love tangerines. I love watermelons. Pears are great for fibre intake. I'm actually enjoying bananas lately. I'm not really a big fan of bananas, ladies. I like them. I don't know about you all. I like them when they're like brown. When they're like almost ready to just be squished and thrown into a pancake or some other mix because they're not really edible. I like them when they are that soft. Cannot bear like a green or even like just a firm banana. I don't know what it is. I don't normally get the ick about food textures. I'm quite happy to eat whatever's going, but I just don't like bananas until they're maybe a little bit overripe. Anyway, been enjoying bananas. Obviously the usual suspects, your berries. Berries are great, but they are low calorie, so they're not as filling. Watermelon is normally my go-to if I feel like I want something that's sweet, it's juicy, it's a bit more enjoyable, I suppose. The likes of dates, apricots, dried fruits, I would limit more so because they are higher in sugar, and they've normally got, a couple of additives thrown in. But yeah, simple fruit, keep it with you at all times, and just give yourself that strict boundary. It's not a low calorie option that you're looking for. It's not a rice cake. It's not a skinny whip bar. Nope, none of that. It's not one of the kids' mini eggs. It's a piece of fruit. We've got to remember the cycle that we get stuck in. I know I sound as though I'm on a bit of a soapbox here because I do get passionate about this, and I'll tell you why. Because we give our power away so easily, ladies. We give our power away to the fact that we're out of routine. This is all in our head, by the way. Everything that we are stressing about is in our head. We've created this internal narrative, but you are always in the driver's seat. And if you can't get your workout and you can't do things in a certain order to what you would usually, be okay with that. Give yourself a little bit of grace. So I'm on a soapbox, and if you're listening to this thinking, goodness me, Nick, you're talking at 10 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour would probably be more on point. It's just because I'm so passionate about us women breaking the bubble, breaking the narrative, breaking through these stresses that we put on ourselves, exactly what I've just spoke about. We cry when our kids go to bed. We miss them. We don't want them to grow up. We wish we hadn't lost our temper earlier, like all of the things. But when we're with them, we're talking about how stressful it is. Like, let's not take away motherhood is chaotic. It is. But they're going to be back in school in 2 weeks. So let's not deter from what's important. And also the biggest reason for the majority of us why we really want to prioritise our health, why it's important for us to get in shape and feel confident and have the strength and the stamina to be able to keep up, is because we want to be able to show up in a certain way for our kids and we want to show them how it's done. So with all of that talk, let's make sure we can put it into action these next couple of weeks. There's no harm in showing your kids the standard. There's no harm in just taking fruit out for everyone and making sure that everybody starts the day with a high protein, high fat breakfast. Yeah, of course, the kids are probably going to have something a little different, of course, but you can set a standard as a family if you know that that is also going to be in support of you. Okay, on that note, with the exercise. So this generally tends to be the biggest struggle, doesn't it? I can't get to the gym because I would normally go when the kids are in school, or I would normally get my home workout when they're in school, and now all hell has broken loose because they're climbing all over me and, I can't get my session done or I can't get out to the gym. Okay, so maybe we need to get a little bit creative with our workouts in the next 2 weeks. So first and foremost, as with everything, be brutally honest with yourself. Don't make excuses where we can put a plan in place. So if you can get up at 6 a.m. and your hubby's not leaving till 7:30 because maybe he's still in work, then get up at 6 a.m. and go to the gym. If that's the hour that you've got to yourself, make it work. And if you don't choose to take that hour, try not to get too hung up on the fact that you can't get a workout in, because it's not that there is no time in the day, it's that you're choosing not to use that time to work out. You're choosing to have the extra hour in bed. Be okay with that. That's a choice. I'm not here to tell you what choices to make, but we've always got a decision to be made, ladies. We can't beat ourselves up if there is a choice there and we're choosing to go against it. Likewise, if you're not a gym goer, you normally have a home workout, you're trying to be as quiet as you can, but now the kids are in this funny little cycle where it's like disrupting your routine. Well, first of all, I would make this known. If you're in a position where you can tag team with the hubby and you can get half an hour to yourself, and I know a lot of women feel really selfish because they're like, well, my hubby's been in work all day. And the amount of women I speak to whose husbands go to the gym 4 times a week and they can't find 20 minutes to work out. And I'm like, but that's his routine. This might not be you, by the way. If you're listening to this, it might not be you, but some women will definitely relate. Well, listen, that might have been his routine for as long as you can remember. Where's the harm in that changing? It's maybe it's gonna disrupt the apple cart a little bit, but you taking care of you, let's not forget, has got to come top, if not top 3 of the priority list for the family. Because we all know that when you feel better in yourself, when you've been able to release some of that tension and work on yourself and get that hit of happy hormones and just take 20 minutes putting your body through some exercise, it definitely benefits your partner, it benefits the kids, it benefits the entire household. That in itself benefits the life that you all live and the way that you experience life and you experience the day to day. So if it's not currently being made a priority, because that's just never been the case, be willing to change that. And again, if something in the back of your mind has got you trapped thinking, no, but I couldn't because he's not going to understand or he won't get it, or again, that's a decision though. That's a decision that you are choosing to make in not putting yourself forward and making it known that actually I need an equal share here of the time that's spent in the gym. You go 4 times a week, I don't get to go at all. We're going to have to split that down the middle and work something out. Bold move, ladies, for some of you, but while the kids are off, it might be necessary. Other ways that we can make it work. So we're actually going away for a couple of days over Easter and we've just booked some outdoor activities, and that will definitely just be my exercise for the day. Other things that we will do is we might go out on walks, we might go out, take the kids on their scooters, again, weather permitting, but kids are on scooters or bikes, you get to walk or jog. Just being out on foot, it's not the same as lifting weights, it's definitely not, but just being outdoors on foot, way best that you can, or getting stuck in the soft play, whatever it needs to look like, taking the kids to the swimming pool. Just remember that as long as we are in motion and we're moving, we're keeping up our exercise. We mightn't be keeping up our usual routine. That's okay. That's why consistency is so important, ladies, because if we've been consistent up until this point in the year, well, you know what? This is the flexibility that we're looking to create. So if the routine's going to be a little different for 2 weeks, but we can commit to keeping a general level of movement, whether it's increasing your step or you replace the gym workout for a home workout, whatever it is, be okay with that. Be grateful that we get to move our bodies. Just flip the mindset on this, because again, a lot of what we perceive to be us going backwards or, that we stress ourselves out with, it's just a narrative that we've created in our minds, and it really doesn't have to be the undoing of any hard work. It just means that your time spent exercising will look a bit different. But yeah, if you can go to the gym or you can get your usual session, if you can get to the gym, even better, because you get out of your home environment. So you're not going to run the risk of someone disturbing you mid-session, shouting you or climbing on you or whatever. So if you can get to the gym, perfect. Otherwise, as I always recommend, look at your week and plan it in, plan your gym sessions in, as non-negotiables. Try to make it as realistic as possible. So if you know you've got no intention of training at 3 p.m. in the afternoon because that's just not going to work for you, plan it in 6:30, get up, get it done, and then you can get on with the rest of your day. Set the standard with your kids. I've already touched on this one, but I would definitely recommend get the kids involved, making the healthy breakfasts, making the healthy lunches, prepping the fruit, normalise it at home that the goodies and the treats and whatever else, they're not what we rely upon when we're hungry. They are popped maybe in the end cupboard, and instead we've chopped all of the fresh fruit up, we've got all of the peppers chopped up, we've got all of the carrot sticks and whatever else the kids might enjoy that'll also work for you, and make it almost like a family activity. That is just something that I will do with my kids that I think they really love it. They enjoy to be part of prepping and making all of the goodies. They also enjoy to eat that way. And it just means that for me, I'm not constantly battling willpower because kids are eating one way and I'm eating another. Because that is a tough spot for us to be in. Is that because if you have one little bit of what they're having, a lot of the time, if it is like treat food or whatever we want to call it, let's just use chocolate as the example. So chocolate is one of the most hyperpalatable foods, which means that when it goes onto your tongue, the chemicals in the chocolate, this is the science, they send a message to the brain, and the brain instantly craves then more of the same. This is like that saying with Pringles, once you pop, you can't stop, and all of these other foods that are either high in salt, high in sugar, ultra processed, they create a chemical response in the mouth, signal to the brain, and it triggers a craving for more. So this willpower that we feel like we can't get a hold of around chocolate, well, we're kind of putting ourselves at a disadvantage by just having it at the drop of a hat, because the minute that you do that, you are then fighting against these chemical, genuinely like a chemical response. So this is why I will always say, plan where you're going to have your indulgence and just enjoy it, because then it's so much easier if let's say for example, you're going out for dinner tomorrow night, you're going to have dessert afterwards, then today, do you know what, I'm not going to have any of the sweet stuff with the kids because I'm going to have some tomorrow and I'm going to look forward to it. I can't eat like that every day because it's not going to work with my goals. It's not going to work with the standard that I want to hold myself to. And I know that if I have a little bit, I'm going to then be just on the back foot all day. So instead, I'm going to do me. I'm going to let everybody else do their thing. I'm not going to restrict. I'm going to look forward to, we're going out tomorrow, I'm going to have a dessert, I'm going to get whatever I fancy, and I'm going to enjoy it, guilt-free. That's just my recommendation on that one. There's lots of foods, ladies, that are hyper-palatable, but definitely the likes of your chocolate, your crisps, your savoury snacks, like your pretzels and all that kind of stuff. Those are the ones that are really hard. Like once you start eating that type of food, it's really hard to then draw a line and move past it. Again, simple things like buying mini packs instead of grab bags. The intention is that the grab bag is for a family share and you're just going to be good. But if you know that you find that really hard, just buy the small packs. Give the small packs to the kids instead of laying it out in a sharing bowl, and save yourself that constant battle. And then the last point, more than anything, is just to remember why. Remember why this is important to you. Remember why you might be feeling stressed. Remember why you might be feeling overwhelmed. Remember why it's so important for you to get to where you want to be. Maybe think on, why is this stressing me out? Is this stressing me out because I don't want to put weight on? Why is that? Because if I've got weight on me, my confidence drops off a cliff. And when I'm not confident, it seeps into every area because I don't show up as the mum that I want to be. I don't volunteer to get in the soft play. I've got an attitude with my husband and it's not his fault. It's just me. I feel a certain way in my skin. And so I'm reactive. I'm naughty when I'm around him. And we think on, but why is it so important for us to stay in control? And when you can truly reflect on that, first of all, that example that I've just given, the thought of if I put a little bit of weight on, I'm going to go back to my old self, bad habits are going to creep back in, all of these things that we say to ourselves. Ladies, if you've been consistent up until this point, please let me reassure you that a little jump up on the scales because you had a little bit more fun with the kids and you ate a little bit differently is not going to be the undoing. It doesn't mean that old habits are creeping back in. That is your mind playing tricks on you. We've got to be able to allow ourselves this little bit of give and take. And actually, unless you are eating thousands more calories over than your calorie allowance or what is needed to keep you at maintenance. It's not body fat that we're gaining. We know this. Can we get clear on this once and for all? It's not body fat. It becomes body fat when you feel a certain way about the food that you've ate. So you decide to jack it in and eat even more of the said food, and then it rolls on for 2 to 3 days because you feel really crap about yourself, and your response to feeling crap is to eat in a certain way. And okay, now we're talking body fat. Now you have overeaten to an extent where we probably are starting to make that shift. So this is why it's so important. Have something, enjoy it, nip it in the bud, get straight back to it. If you have a day where you think, oh my gosh, that went right against the plan and I had all good intentions, don't stress. We can never take back something that we've done. We can only make the next decision a really good decision. And if it feels uncomfortable because we've got ourselves into this habit of craving or low energy, or our mood's being knocked, or we've had a bit more alcohol and it feels uncomfortable, face the discomfort. Because if you want change, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It feels uncomfortable staying stuck where you are, but in the moment, it's that instant gratification of, this is my comfort zone. But if you want change and you want transformation, be ready. That ain't going to feel comfortable, but it will feel rewarding. And I will say that there is nothing more rewarding, more powerful, that will build more resilience than you say you're going to do something and you just do it. You say you're going to get up and get the workout. You say you're going to eat in a certain way. You say that when your hubby comes in, you are going to instantly get out and get a half an hour walk around the block. You say you're going to remove alcohol. Whatever it is, you say it and then you do it. And honestly, on the other side, how simple is that? But how many times do we say we're going to do something and we don't do it? We give ourselves a grey area. So we say we're not going to have any alcohol, but then we have one. We say we're not going to eat in a certain way, but then we do. We say we're going to go and get the walk, but then we don't. And we make an excuse for why that happened. And those excuses feel good for like 5 minutes. And then we're back to making promises to ourselves again about how next time will be better. So this half-term break, if you do anything for yourself, remember why. Maybe part of your why is because when the kids are off, you want to be able to get involved and you want to be able to have a bit more flexibility. But that's also okay. That can also be a part of the plan. I don't want this podcast to sound as though we've got to be rigid and restrictive at all times, but I do speak to a lot of women who, what we really want is, we want our goals on waivers. We want to get out the other side of Easter and feel as though we've had a good time, we've let our hair down, we've made memories, but actually, do you know what? We've still sustained feeling good in ourselves. We haven't put any weight on. It's not like we've gone down a rabbit hole eating chocolate every day for breakfast. Like, that's just not who we are anymore. If that's what you want, just get clear on it and be willing to just put the action in place to make sure that that happens. So most of that comes down to being prepared for yourself. And another little one is just staying in a similar routine if you can. I know that this is what throws a lot of us as well, because kids generally tend to stay up a bit later, which means our time for ourselves when the kids are in bed ends up being a bit later. So then we're going to bed later, and that, even that in itself can skew. And it's okay. It's okay to have, a bit of a different routine, but where you can, stick to your bedtime routine, your wake routine, your water goal of a morning, your protein at each meal, you're plugging in fruit for your snacks. Where you can stick to that, stick to it. Stick to it without making excuses, because it's doable, but we've just got to prioritise it. Ladies, let's have a cracking couple of weeks. I hope you, wherever you are when you listen to this podcast, whether it's on Monday, whether it's halfway through the week, I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's given you the permission that you might have needed to prioritise yourself. Enjoy every moment of your kiddos being off, even the stressful moments, because I'm talking sense when I'm saying they go to bed and we cry at how fleeting the years are. Well, let's make the most of them while we're in it, ladies. If you do get your workouts this week, hats off. Get in there and lift with some intention. Try to leave the to-do list and the worries and everything else at the door. Get in, dedicate your time to yourself in that workout. Put a bloody good playlist on. Eat well afterwards, drink the water. Take care of yourself, and let's have a happy, healthy Easter period. And I will catch you all, ladies, on the next episode of the Nickel Grain podcast.